The Equalizer 3 is not just another action sequel. It is the final chapter in the story of Robert McCall, played by Denzel Washington. This film brings closure to a character who has quietly become one of the most intense and controlled heroes in modern action cinema. Released in 2023 and directed once again by Antoine Fuqua, the movie takes the familiar revenge formula and places it in a new emotional and physical setting. Instead of a crowded American city, the story moves to a quiet town in southern Italy. But even in this peaceful place, violence follows. From the very first scene, the movie sets a serious and heavy tone. This is not an explosive action film filled with loud jokes and flashy one-liners. Instead, it is slow, calm, and tense. The film understands that its main character is older now. Robert McCall is not a young man chasing danger. He is tired. He wants peace. He wants to disappear and finally rest. But as we have seen in the earlier films, peace does not come easily to a man who has lived such a violent life. What makes this introduction powerful is the way the movie presents McCall's internal struggle. He is no longer simply fighting bad people. He is fighting his own past. Every action he takes feels heavier. Every decision feels final. This chapter feels like a goodbye. The story is not about building a new legend. It is about closing one. The setting plays a major role in shaping this introduction. The small Italian coastal town looks beautiful, warm, and welcoming. The narrow streets, open markets, and friendly neighbors create a strong contrast to McCall's dark and dangerous past. For the first time in the series, he is surrounded by people who show him kindness without asking for anything in return. That changes the emotional weight of the story. Now, when violence appears, it threatens something meaningful. Another important element introduced early in the film is the idea of community. In the previous films, McCall mostly worked alone. He protected individuals, helped strangers, and disappeared again. But here, he slowly becomes part of a town. He drinks coffee with locals. He walks through familiar streets. He starts building quiet relationships. This makes the story feel more personal than ever before. When danger arrives, it does not feel like just another mission. It feels like an attack on home. The introduction also makes it clear that this movie will be more brutal and direct. The action scenes are sharp and realistic. They are not long or flashy. They are fast, controlled, and intense. McCall does not waste time. Every movement has purpose. This creates a feeling of fear around him. The audience understands that he is still extremely dangerous, even if he is trying to leave that life behind. At the same time, there is a strong sense of reflection. The camera often stays on McCall's face, showing small reactions instead of big speeches. The film trusts silence. It allows the audience to feel what he is thinking without explaining everything. This gives the introduction a mature and thoughtful tone. The movie also shows that this is a more personal story. In earlier chapters, McCall stepped in to protect people who were strangers to him. Here, he becomes emotionally connected to the town. He sees the fear in the eyes of shop owners. He hears the silence in streets that should be full of life. The danger is not abstract. It is close and real. That makes his involvement feel deeper and more emotional. Another key part of the introduction is the sense of aging. McCall moves carefully. He feels pain. He gets injured. The film does not hide his physical limits. Instead, it uses them to increase tension. This is not a superhero story. It is about a man who has skills, discipline, and experience, but also scars. Both physical and emotional scars shape his journey. The calm rhythm of the early scenes builds suspense. You know something bad is coming, but the movie takes its time. It allows us to settle into the town, to feel its warmth, and to understand why it matters. When violence finally breaks that calm, it feels shocking and personal. The biggest question introduced at the beginning is simple but powerful. Can Robert McCall ever truly escape who he is? Or is he destined to fight until the end? This question drives the emotional core of the story. He wants peace, but injustice pulls him back. He wants silence, but his skills demand action. For longtime fans, the introduction feels satisfying because it respects the character's journey. It does not suddenly change him into someone new. It deepens what we already know. For new viewers, it works as a standalone story about justice, protection, and redemption. In many ways, the film begins like a quiet sunset. It is calm and beautiful, but you can sense that darkness is coming. And when it does, Robert McCall will once again step forward, not because he wants to, but because he believes he must. This introduction prepares us for a story that is not just about action, but about legacy, identity, and the final cost of living a violent life. The Equalizer 3 is a 2023 American action thriller film and the third installment in the Equalizer film series. It serves as the direct sequel to The Equalizer released in 2014 and The Equalizer 2 released in 2018. The movie continues the story of Robert McCall, a former government operative who now uses his skills to deliver justice to those who cannot protect themselves. This third chapter is positioned as the final entry in the trilogy, bringing closure to McCall's journey. The film was directed by Antoine Fuqua, who also directed the first two movies in the series. His consistent involvement gives the trilogy a unified tone and style. The screenplay was written by Richard Wenk, who previously worked on the earlier installments as well. This continuity in both direction and writing helps maintain the characters' established personality, pacing, and storytelling structure. Denzel Washington returns in the lead role as Robert McCall. His performance anchors the entire film and remains the central driving force of the narrative. This film also reunites Washington with actress Dakota Fanning, who plays CIA officer Emma Collins. Interestingly, Washington and Fanning previously worked together nearly 2 decades earlier in the 2004 film Man on Fire. Their reunion adds an extra layer of interest for audiences familiar with their past collaboration. The supporting cast includes David Denman, Gaia Scodelario, Eugenio Mastrandrea, and several Italian actors who portray residents of the small coastal town where much of the story takes place. The antagonists are members of the Camorra, an organized crime syndicate operating in southern Italy. This shift in location from the United States to Italy marks a major change in the franchise's setting. The Equalizer 3 was produced by Columbia Pictures in association with Escape Artists and Eagle Pictures. The movie was distributed by Sony Pictures Releasing. Principal photography took place primarily in Italy, especially along the Amalfi Coast and in the Calabria region. The authentic Italian locations play a major role in shaping the film's visual identity. The runtime of the film is approximately 109 minutes, making it slightly shorter than the previous entries. This tighter runtime contributes to a more focused and streamlined narrative. The film is rated R for strong bloody violence, language, and some drug-related material. Like its predecessors, it does not hold back in portraying intense action sequences. The music for the film was composed by Marcelo Zarvos. The cinematography was handled by Robert Richardson, an experienced cinematographer known for his dramatic lighting and strong visual compositions. His work in this film emphasizes shadows, warm Mediterranean tones, and sharp contrasts between peaceful scenery and sudden violence. The movie was released theatrically in the United States on September 1, 2023. It was strategically scheduled for the Labor Day weekend, a time that often provides strong box office performance for action films. Upon release, the movie attracted both longtime fans of the franchise and general action audiences. In terms of genre, The Equalizer 3 firmly belongs to the action thriller category, but it also incorporates elements of crime drama and character study. While action remains a key component, the film places stronger emphasis on atmosphere and emotional reflection compared to earlier chapters. The production budget was reported to be around $70 million. This budget allowed for international filming, high-quality action choreography, and polished cinematography without reaching the scale of massive blockbuster franchises. The film balances practical effects with grounded action rather than relying heavily on large-scale CGI spectacles. Critically, the film received mixed to positive reviews. Many critics praised Denzel Washington's performance and the film's setting, while some noted that the story followed a familiar formula. However, audiences generally responded positively, especially fans who appreciated the more personal and quieter tone of this final chapter. The Equalizer franchise itself is loosely inspired by the 1980s television series of the same name. However, the films have created their own distinct identity, focusing almost entirely on Washington's portrayal of McCall rather than directly adapting specific storylines from the original show. Overall, The Equalizer 3 stands as the concluding chapter of a modern action trilogy centered around a calm but deadly protagonist. It combines international settings, consistent creative leadership, strong central performance, and controlled storytelling. These basic details provide the foundation for understanding how the film fits within the larger franchise and how it positions itself as the final mission of Robert McCall. This is what happens when you steal from the wrong man. In the quiet, sun-drenched hills of Sicily, surrounded by endless vineyards and the illusion of peace, a storm has already passed through a luxurious winery estate, leaving only silence and death behind. The guards are scattered across marble floors, their bodies twisted in unnatural positions, security systems destroyed with surgical precision, and the heavy wooden doors left slightly open as if inviting someone to witness the aftermath. This was not chaos. This was calculation. And at the center of it stands Robert McCall, a man who does not rage, does not threaten, and does not repeat himself. Crime enforcer Lorenzo Vitali returns to his mansion with his young grandson, unaware that every man he trusted is already dead. The boy walks innocently beside him as Lorenzo steps into the horrifying stillness of his home, confusion turning to dread as he discovers body after body. These were not quick executions. They were deliberate, brutal statements. Whoever did this wanted Lorenzo to understand something before he died. Down in the basement wine cellar, between aged barrels and dim lighting, Lorenzo finally finds Robert. Two surviving henchmen hold Robert at gunpoint, making it appear as though the intruder has been captured. Lorenzo, furious yet trying to maintain control, circles him like a predator reclaiming dominance. He unleashes threats, promises of slow torture, boasts about power and influence, believing fear will break the calm man standing before him. But Robert's expression never changes. His voice remains steady as he asks for only one thing: return what was stolen, money that never belonged to Lorenzo in the first place. There is no shouting, no dramatic speech, just quiet certainty. Then, in less than 10 seconds, everything changes. Robert moves with terrifying efficiency, disarming one henchman before the man can even react, redirecting the weapon, eliminating the second without hesitation. Lorenzo barely has time to process what is happening before Robert closes the distance between them. Fear replaces arrogance as Robert confirms what he needs to know. The key to the vault is hanging from Lorenzo's belt. Once confirmed, Robert ends him swiftly. It is not revenge. It is balance. As Robert exits the estate, mission complete, the night air feels heavier. But fate is not done testing him. A gunshot shatters the silence, and pain explodes through his back. Lorenzo's adolescent grandson stands trembling behind him, gun shaking in his small hands, eyes filled with shock at what he has just done. Robert slowly turns. In that moment, he could end the cycle. He could eliminate the last threat. Instead, he sees not an enemy, but a frightened child shaped by a violent world. Despite the bullet lodged in his body and the blood soaking through his clothes, Robert lowers his weapon and lets the boy live. Severely wounded and alone, he stumbles toward his car, every breath becoming heavier as blood loss takes its toll. At one point, sitting in the driver's seat under the Sicilian night sky, he considers ending his own suffering. He raises his gun and pulls the trigger, but the chamber clicks empty. Even death denies him release. Refusing to surrender, he boards a ferry to the mainland, hiding his injury as the sea wind stings his wound. By the time he begins driving along the breathtaking Amalfi coast, his vision is fading and shock is setting in. The cliffs blur, the crashing waves echo faintly, and his grip on the steering wheel weakens. He pulls over just in time before collapsing into unconsciousness. When he wakes, he is not in a morgue or a prison cell. He is in a small, remote coastal town called Altamonte, rescued by a local carabinier named Gio Benucci. Benucci, a principled officer who believes deeply in his community, found Robert unconscious and chose to save him rather than question him. Robert is taken to Dr. Enzo Arizio, an experienced small-town physician whose steady hands and quiet demeanor help pull Robert back from the edge of death. For 3 days, Robert drifts between consciousness and darkness, his body fighting to recover. When he finally regains strength, Enzo guides him gently to the town's piazza. For the first time in a long while, Robert observes something unfamiliar: peace. Children laugh freely, elderly couples sit together sharing stories, shopkeepers greet neighbors by name, and life moves at a human pace untouched by corruption or violence. At a local cafe, Robert drinks espresso and watches silently, studying the rhythms of this place. Benucci approaches him warmly, introducing his young daughter Gabby, treating Robert not as a suspect but as a guest. Robert claims his injuries were caused by a fall, a lie delivered calmly, and Benucci chooses not to challenge it. Instead, Benucci tells him something simple but meaningful: Altamonte is full of good people. Robert understands the message behind the words. This town is not for men like him. Without saying it directly, he silently promises he will not bring harm to their doorstep. Benucci also mentions he has Robert's car and did not search his belongings, unaware that the stolen money from the winery rests inside. Trust is offered freely here, something Robert rarely encounters. As days pass, Robert begins forming quiet connections with the townspeople. He listens to their stories, helps when he can, and for a brief moment considers the possibility of staying invisible. But his instincts never truly rest. He notices unfamiliar men collecting protection payments from local businesses, intimidation masked as routine visits. Boats arrive quietly at night along the coast, unloading shipments under cover of darkness. The shadow of the Camorra looms over Altamont. Robert recognizes the signs immediately. Crime has infected this peaceful sanctuary. From a public phone, he anonymously contacts CIA officer Emma Collins, tipping her off about the Sicilian winery's suspicious shipments disguised as Syrian wine exports. 55 crates that made no sense. Transactions too clean to be legitimate. Collins and her team later discover enormous sums of cash and hidden bags of phenethylene tablets, confirming that the vineyard was part of a much larger drug operation funneling money toward darker purposes. Meanwhile, in Altamonte, tension escalates as Marco Quaranta of the Camorra pressures local store owner Angelo for increased payments. When Angelo resists, the Camorra firebombs his fish store in front of the entire town as a brutal warning. Flames rise into the night sky while fear spreads through the community. Robert watches the fire reflect in the eyes of the townspeople who showed him kindness. The peace he found here is fragile, and predators are circling. Robert McCall did not come to Altamonte looking for another war. But when evil plants itself in innocent soil, he does not walk away. As the ashes of Angelo's burned fish store settle into the cobblestone streets of Altamonte, fear quietly takes root in the hearts of its people. What was once a peaceful coastal sanctuary now feels watched, measured, and controlled. The Camorra, led by the volatile Marco Quaranta and his calculating older brother Vincent, tighten their grip with the confidence of men who believe they are untouchable. Marco thrives on intimidation, strutting through town with armed associates, demanding protection money and humiliating business owners in broad daylight. Vincent, however, operates differently, quieter, more strategic, preferring fear that whispers rather than screams. But both brothers share the same ambition: to force the residents out, seize the coastal properties, and transform Altamonte into a profitable hub for their expanding criminal empire. Robert McCall observes everything from a distance, his expression calm but his mind already calculating outcomes. He sees the subtle shifts in behavior, the shopkeepers avoiding eye contact, conversations cutting short when unfamiliar cars drive by, children pulled indoors earlier than usual. This is how occupation begins. Not with armies, but with intimidation. Gio Benucci, determined to protect his town through lawful means, reviews security footage of the firebombing and contacts Central Italian authorities, hoping for intervention. But corruption runs deep, and word of his inquiry reaches the Camorra through an informant within the police. The retaliation is swift and merciless. One evening, as Benucci returns home with his wife and daughter, Camorra men ambush them. They beat him savagely in front of his family, delivering a message without subtlety: stop interfering or suffer worse consequences. Robert learns of the attack and visits Benucci, seeing firsthand the bruises and quiet humiliation of a good man punished for doing his job. Something shifts inside him. This is no longer about coincidence or temporary refuge. This is about invasion. Meanwhile, far beyond the quiet streets of Altamonte, CA officer Emma Collins continues tracing the financial trail Robert set in motion. The discovery of phenethylene tablets and massive cash reserves at the Sicilian winery reveals a deeper network tied to Middle Eastern extremists. When a bombing devastates a Rome train station, killing civilians and shaking the nation, Collins connects the attack to the same funding pipeline Robert exposed. Sicily, with its heavily guarded ports and complex smuggling routes, has become a strategic gateway for drugs and terror financing into Europe. Collins pieces together that Lorenzo's operation was not isolated greed but part of a larger machine. And somewhere within that machine, the Camorra are partners. Back in Altamonte, Marco grows bolder, demanding that Benucci secure a boat and establish contact routes extending toward Somalia, expanding their narcotics distribution network. By chance, or perhaps inevitability, Robert overhears Marco discussing these plans. He approaches calmly, requesting they relocate their operations elsewhere, offering a final opportunity to leave the town untouched. Marco laughs, dismissing him as an outsider who doesn't understand the hierarchy of power. That laughter is a mistake. Later that night, in a dimly lit coastal warehouse, Marco and his men continue their operations unaware that Robert has already chosen their fate. What follows is swift and methodical. One by one, Marco's henchmen fall in the darkness, neutralized before they can comprehend the threat. Marco attempts to flee, but Robert intercepts him with clinical precision. There are no speeches, no drawn-out torture, just inevitability. Marco Quaranta's reign ends quietly, absorbed into the shadows like the men before him. News of Marco's death spreads rapidly through criminal networks, reaching Vincent in Naples. Unlike his brother, Vincent does not react emotionally. He reacts strategically. He interrogates contacts, tortures the Naples head of police, and uncovers fragments of information suggesting that an outsider, possibly connected to the CIA, is dismantling his operations. Vincent learns of Emma Collins and begins shifting focus toward eliminating her as leverage. Collins, meanwhile, tracks Robert to Altamonte, confirming what she already suspected: he was behind the Vineyard Massacre. Their reunion is professional but layered with history. Robert explains his interest in uncovering why Sicily was being used as a narcotics gateway tied to Syrian extremists. Collins shares intelligence confirming that the drug profits are directly funding terror cells within Italy. They form an unspoken alliance, her with institutional authority, him with practical solutions. Vincent escalates the conflict by planting a bomb in Collins' vehicle, intending to eliminate her before she can expose him. Robert, sensing the pattern and anticipating retaliation, warns her just in time. The explosion that follows is devastating but fails to claim her life. Vincent's frustration intensifies. In a final display of dominance, he arrives in Altamonte publicly, armed and flanked by men, dragging Benucci into the town square. In front of the entire community, Vincent threatens to execute him unless the mysterious protector reveals himself. Silence blankets the piazza. The townspeople watch helplessly, phones trembling in their hands as some begin recording. Robert steps forward from the crowd, surrendering himself to protect Benucci. Vincent smirks, believing he has finally cornered his enemy. But when he notices dozens of cameras pointed at him, capturing every threat and movement, he hesitates. Public exposure is something Vincent cannot afford. With controlled fury, he orders a retreat, promising to return the next day and finish what he started. The message is clear: war has officially begun. That night, Altamonte feels different. Windows are shuttered. Streets are empty. Fear lingers thick in the air. But Robert does not wait for daylight. He knows men like Vincent operate best when others hesitate. Under the cover of darkness, Robert begins preparing for the final confrontation, studying Vincent's movements, security, and routines. This will not be chaotic violence. It will be precise removal. The Camorra believed Altamonte was weak because its people were kind. They believed control could be enforced through fear. What they failed to understand is that sometimes peace survives not because it is defenseless, but because someone is willing to defend it without hesitation. And Robert McCall has never been afraid of finishing what others start. The night before Vincent Quaranta plans to return and make an example of Altamonte, the town barely sleeps. Curtains remain drawn, lights flicker behind closed shutters, and every distant engine sound causes unease. Fear has settled in like a heavy fog. But while the Camorra prepare to strike publicly at dawn, Robert McCall prepares to end the war before sunrise. He understands men like Vincent. They thrive on spectacle, on dominance performed in front of witnesses. So Robert chooses the opposite approach: silence. Under the cover of darkness, he tracks Vincent to his heavily guarded estate outside town, a modern fortress protected by armed sentries and surveillance. To most, it would seem impenetrable. To Robert, it is simply a system with weaknesses waiting to be exploited. One by one, Vincent's bodyguards disappear into the night. A shadow crosses a hallway, a muffled struggle behind a pillar, a security camera redirected seconds before it captures something important. There is no chaos, no alarms blaring. Only controlled precision. By the time Vincent realizes something is wrong, most of his protection is already gone. He searches his house with rising anxiety, calling out orders that receive no response. The predator who ruled through fear is now alone inside his own fortress. Robert confronts him not with rage, but with certainty. Vincent attempts to negotiate, then threaten, then bargain again, cycling through tactics that once worked on weaker men. He insists his operations are business, that power demands harsh measures, that Altamonte was merely collateral in expansion. Robert listens briefly, then reminds him of something simple: actions have consequences. Vincent's empire was built on drugs, phenethylene tablets that poisoned communities and funded terror attacks against innocent civilians, including the bombing in Rome that Collins traced back to his network. The money stolen from pensioners and families, the violence against shopkeepers, the beating of Benucci in front of his daughter, these are not abstract crimes. They are choices. And now those choices return to him. In a final act of irony, Robert forces Vincent to consume a lethal dose of his own narcotics, the very product that empowered him. It is not dramatic or drawn out. It is inevitable. Vincent Quaranta, the calculating architect of intimidation, collapses within the walls he believed made him untouchable. With his death, the Camorra's hold over Altamonte fractures instantly. Without leadership, the organization retreats, preferring survival over revenge against a force they cannot understand. As dawn approaches, the town wakes not to gunfire, but to quiet. Word spreads quickly that the Quaranta brothers are dead. The men who terrorized businesses, burned stores, and threatened families have vanished. There is confusion at first, then disbelief, and finally relief. Benucci, though still bruised from his assault, stands in uniform in the piazza once more. His authority, previously challenged, is restored not through politics, but through absence of fear. Meanwhile, Emma Collins continues her coordinated effort across Sicily. With Vincent eliminated and financial routes exposed, Italian authorities and intelligence units move swiftly against remaining terror cells. Raids uncover hidden stockpiles of drugs and cash, severing the funding stream that fueled extremist operations. Collins' investigation confirms what Robert suspected from the beginning. The Sicilian vineyard was more than a criminal venture. It was a strategic hub linking organized crime and international terrorism. By dismantling it and eliminating the Camorra leadership, Robert has disrupted far more than local corruption. In a quiet gesture that reflects his personal code, Robert uses Collins as an intermediary to return the money he recovered from the winery. The stolen pension funds are restored to the elderly couple whose life savings had been wiped out by Lorenzo's cyber heist. They will never know who truly recovered their future, and Robert prefers it that way. Justice, to him, does not require recognition. It requires balance. Collins, back in Langley, Virginia, receives formal acknowledgement for her role in uncovering and dismantling the network. Her promotion is well-earned, built on evidence, persistence, and the courage to follow a lead others might have dismissed. Shortly after, she receives a package. Inside is a book of contacts, valuable intelligence resources, and a handwritten note congratulating her. The message is brief but personal, stating that her mother would be proud of her. In that moment, the final connection becomes clear. Collins is the daughter of Susan Plummer, Robert's longtime friend and colleague. His involvement was never random. It was legacy, loyalty, and protection extending beyond generations. Back in Altamonte, life begins to return to normal. Angelo rebuilds his fish store with help from neighbors. Children play soccer again in the open streets. The fishermen unload their daily catch without looking over their shoulders. One evening, the entire town gathers to celebrate their local football team's victory. Laughter echoes through the piazza, music fills the air, and tables overflow with food and wine. Robert sits among them, not at the center, not seeking gratitude, but simply present. For a man who has spent much of his life moving from conflict to conflict, this moment is rare. Peace, however temporary, surrounds him. Benucci raises a glass in subtle acknowledgement, understanding more than he says aloud. Enzo nods respectfully from across the square. No one asks questions they do not want answered. They know only that the darkness lifted when he arrived and disappeared when he chose to act. Robert watches the celebration quietly, the flicker of fireworks reflecting in his eyes. He does not smile widely, but there is something close to contentment in his expression. He came to Altamonte wounded, considering the possibility that his time had ended. Instead, he found purpose once again, not in vengeance, but in protection. The storm that followed him into Sicily did not consume this town. It broke against him instead. And as the night deepens and the music continues, Robert McCall remains what he has always been, a quiet guardian in a world that often forgets the value of quiet men. The plot structure of the Equalizer 3 follows a classic three-act format, but it is presented with a slower and more reflective rhythm than a typical action thriller. The film carefully balances tension, character moments, and bursts of violence. Instead of constantly moving from one action scene to another, it builds suspense gradually. This controlled pacing shapes the entire narrative flow. The first act opens with a violent confrontation that immediately reminds the audience who Robert McCall is. The scene establishes his efficiency, precision, and moral code. However, it also shows vulnerability. He is injured and physically weaker than before. This opening event functions as both a reminder of his past and a signal that this story will be more personal. After this intense beginning, the film shifts direction. McCall arrives in a quiet coastal town in southern Italy. This transition from chaos to calm is very deliberate. It creates contrast and resets the emotional tone. In this early section, the narrative slows down. We watch McCall recover from his injuries. He walks through the town. He meets local residents. He sits in cafes. These scenes may seem simple, but they are essential to the structure. They allow the audience to understand what is at stake. The town becomes more than a location. It becomes a symbol of peace. The film invests time in building atmosphere before introducing the central conflict. The inciting incident of the main storyline occurs when it becomes clear that the town is under the control of a violent crime organization. The local people are living in fear. Businesses are threatened. Families are pressured. This revelation shifts the narrative from peaceful observation to moral conflict. McCall recognizes injustice. That recognition activates his internal code. The story now has direction. The second act focuses on escalation. McCall quietly investigates the criminal network. Instead of charging directly into battle, he observes and gathers information. This investigative approach gives the narrative a strategic feel. Each step he takes increases tension. The criminals begin to sense resistance. Small confrontations lead to larger consequences. The film carefully raises the stakes without rushing. During this middle section, the story also introduces CIA officer Emma Collins. Her subplot runs parallel to McCall's mission. She is investigating related criminal activity from an official perspective. This dual structure creates narrative layering. On one side, McCall operates outside the law using personal judgment. On the other side, Collins represents institutional justice. Their paths slowly move toward intersection. This parallel progression adds complexity to the flow of the story. As the second act continues, the violence becomes more direct. McCall starts targeting key members of the criminal organization. Each confrontation is short but intense. The narrative rhythm here follows a pattern of build-up, sudden action, and quiet aftermath. The aftermath scenes are important because they restore tension rather than releasing it completely. The town begins to show signs of hope, but danger still surrounds it. The turning point into the third act occurs when the criminal leaders decide to respond aggressively. Instead of subtle intimidation, they bring open violence into the town. This decision changes the tone of the film. The conflict is no longer hidden in shadows. It becomes visible and immediate. The peaceful environment established in the first act is now under direct threat. The final act centers on confrontation and resolution. McCall fully commits to protecting the town. The structure becomes more linear and direct. Each action pushes the story closer to final closure. The film does not rely on a massive explosive finale. Instead, it focuses on controlled and personal showdowns. The pacing remains steady rather than chaotic. Importantly, the narrative avoids unnecessary subplots. It stays tightly focused on McCall, the town, and the criminal threat. This simplicity strengthens the structure. Every scene serves the central theme of protection and justice. There are no distracting side missions or romantic diversions. The flow feels purposeful. The conclusion returns to calm, echoing the opening transition but in reverse. After the final confrontations, silence replaces chaos. The town feels alive again. This circular structure gives the story emotional completeness. It begins with violence, moves through peace, escalates into conflict, and ends with restored balance. Overall, the plot structure of The Equalizer 3 is deliberate, restrained, and character-driven. It follows a traditional three-act design, but its narrative flow is shaped by atmosphere and reflection rather than constant spectacle. This controlled progression reinforces the idea that this is not just another mission. It is the final chapter in Robert McCall's journey. The Equalizer 3 places strong focus on character development, especially for Robert McCall. Unlike many action heroes who remain mostly unchanged, McCall experiences a subtle but meaningful evolution in this final chapter. His arc is not about gaining new skills or becoming stronger. Instead, it is about accepting who he is and deciding what kind of life he wants in his final years. At the beginning of the film, McCall is physically injured and emotionally distant. He has just completed another violent mission, and the weight of that life is clearly visible on his face. He moves carefully. He speaks very little. His body shows signs of aging. This is important because it establishes vulnerability. In earlier films, he felt almost unstoppable. Here he feels human. That shift sets the foundation for his character arc. As he arrives in the small Italian town, we begin to see a softer side of him. He allows himself to sit in public spaces. He observes children playing. He accepts kindness from strangers. These may seem like small details, but they show growth. In previous stories, he kept emotional distance from everyone. Now he slowly opens himself to community life. This gradual connection to the town represents the emotional core of his development. McCall's arc revolves around a central question. Can a man who has lived through violence truly find peace? Throughout the film, he struggles with this idea. He wants to rest. He wants to stop fighting. But he also cannot ignore injustice when he sees it. This internal conflict drives his decisions. Every time he chooses to intervene, he risks losing the peaceful life he is building. The town itself plays a role in shaping his transformation. The local residents treat him with respect and warmth. They do not know his full past. To them, he is simply a quiet American man recovering from injury. This new identity allows him to imagine a different future. For the first time in the series, he seems to consider staying somewhere permanently. That possibility is powerful because it contrasts with his usual pattern of moving from place to place. However, his protective instinct never disappears. When he realizes that the community is controlled by organized crime, his old instincts return. But this time, his motivation feels different. In earlier films, he often helped individuals who were strangers. Here, he fights for people he has come to know personally. This emotional connection deepens his arc. He is not just delivering justice. He is defending a home. Another layer of his development is acceptance. He no longer tries to deny who he is. Instead of pretending he can live a completely peaceful life, he understands that his skills are part of him. The growth comes from balance rather than escape. He accepts that he will always be capable of violence, but he chooses to use it only when absolutely necessary. Emma Collins, the CIA officer, also experiences development. At first, she approaches her investigation professionally and cautiously. She represents official authority and legal systems. As she learns more about the criminal activity, she begins to see the limitations of institutional justice. Through her interactions with McCall, she recognizes that sometimes justice operates outside formal structures. Her arc involves understanding moral complexity rather than simple rules. The town residents show smaller but meaningful arcs as well. At the beginning, they are fearful and silent. Their body language reflects oppression. As McCall begins to eliminate the criminal threat, their confidence slowly returns. They speak more openly. They gather in public spaces again. This collective transformation mirrors McCall's internal journey. Just as the town regains strength, he regains a sense of purpose. Importantly, the film avoids dramatic personality changes. McCall does not suddenly become cheerful or carefree. His development is quiet and realistic. He remains calm, disciplined, and thoughtful. The difference lies in his emotional openness. He allows himself to belong somewhere. That is the true shift. By the end of the film, McCall reaches a form of resolution. He does not abandon his identity, and he does not completely escape violence. Instead, he integrates both parts of himself. He becomes a protector not out of obligation, but out of choice. That choice defines his final arc. Overall, character development in The Equalizer 3 is mature and restrained. It focuses on emotional growth rather than dramatic transformation. Robert McCall's journey is about acceptance, connection, and balance. His arc closes the trilogy in a way that feels complete and earned. The performances in The Equalizer 3 are driven primarily by Denzel Washington, whose portrayal of Robert McCall remains the emotional and dramatic foundation of the film. His performance is controlled, quiet, and deeply internal. Unlike many action leads who rely on loud dialogue or exaggerated physical expression, Washington communicates through stillness. Small facial movements, slow eye shifts, and measured breathing create tension without the need for excessive words. One of the strongest aspects of Washington's performance in this final chapter is restraint. He does not attempt to reinvent the character. Instead, he deepens him. McCall feels older, more reflective, and physically worn down. Washington subtly adjusts his posture and movement to show aging. He walks slightly slower. He sits carefully. When he fights, his actions are precise but economical. This physical performance reinforces the idea that McCall is experienced rather than flashy. Emotionally, Washington brings weight to every scene. There are moments when he simply observes the town around him, and the audience can sense his internal conflict without dialogue. His eyes often carry a mix of calm and sadness. That quiet sadness suggests a man who has seen too much violence. This emotional layering prevents the character from feeling like a typical revenge figure. Instead, he feels human and thoughtful. When the action begins, Washington shifts tone without losing control. He never appears chaotic or angry for the sake of drama. His voice remains steady, even during confrontations. This calm delivery makes threats more powerful. The audience understands that when McCall speaks softly, he is completely serious. Washington's vocal control is one of the key elements that defines the character. Dakota Fanning, who plays CIA officer Emma Collins, delivers a grounded and professional performance. Her acting style contrasts with Washington's calm intensity. She represents modern intelligence work and legal procedure. Fanning portrays Collins as intelligent and observant rather than aggressive. She asks questions carefully. She listens more than she speaks. This controlled performance fits the tone of the film. The chemistry between Washington and Fanning is subtle but effective. Their scenes together are built on mutual respect rather than emotional drama. They do not overshare feelings. Instead, they communicate through professional understanding. This restrained dynamic feels realistic and mature. It avoids unnecessary tension and focuses on shared purpose. The actors portraying the Italian townspeople bring warmth and authenticity to the film. Their performances feel natural rather than theatrical. Simple gestures, such as offering coffee or greeting McCall in the street, help build the sense of community. These performances are important because they make the town feel real. Without believable residents, the stakes would feel lower. The sincerity of their acting strengthens the emotional impact of the story. The actors playing members of the crime organization deliver performances that focus on intimidation and control. They avoid exaggerated villain behavior. Instead of shouting constantly, they use quiet threats and confident body language. This approach keeps the antagonists believable. Their calm cruelty makes them more unsettling. One notable strength across the cast is tonal consistency. No performance feels out of place. The actors understand the film's serious and reflective mood. There are no comedic exaggerations or overdramatic outbursts that break immersion. Every performance supports the film's grounded style. Another key aspect of the acting is pacing. Conversations unfold slowly. Actors allow pauses to exist. These pauses create tension and realism. Washington, in particular, uses silence as part of his performance. Sometimes he waits before answering, forcing other characters to react. That technique builds suspense without action. Physical acting also deserves attention. Fight scenes rely heavily on body language. Washington's movements are sharp but controlled. He does not waste motion. This efficiency reflects years of experience within the character. The supporting actors react convincingly to violence, making each confrontation feel impactful rather than staged. Overall, the acting in The Equalizer 3 emphasizes realism, restraint, and emotional depth. Denzel Washington leads with a performance that feels reflective and final. Dakota Fanning provides balance and intelligence. The supporting cast adds authenticity and tension. Together, their performances create a mature action film where emotion and character matter just as much as physical conflict. Antoine Fuqua's direction in The Equalizer 3 reflects experience, confidence, and a clear understanding of the character he has shaped over 3 films. As the director of the entire trilogy, Fuqua brings consistency in tone and style. His vision for this final chapter feels deliberate and controlled. Instead of trying to make the film bigger than the previous entries, he makes it more focused and personal. That choice defines the overall direction. One of Fuqua's strongest decisions is shifting the setting to southern Italy. This move changes the visual atmosphere and emotional tone of the story. Rather than using dark city streets and cold urban spaces, he places Robert McCall in warm sunlight, narrow stone alleys, and open coastal views. This contrast between beauty and violence is intentional. Fuqua uses the peaceful environment to highlight the tension beneath the surface. The setting becomes part of the storytelling rather than just a backdrop. Fuqua's direction emphasizes patience. Many scenes unfold slowly. He allows characters to sit in silence. He holds shots longer than expected. This slower rhythm gives the film a reflective mood. It also separates this installment from typical high-speed action movies. Instead of constant explosions, Fuqua builds suspense through quiet observation. The audience feels tension growing even when nothing dramatic is happening on screen. Another important part of Fuqua's vision is restraint in action choreography. The fight scenes are not extended spectacles. They are quick, precise, and brutal. Fuqua frames violence in a way that feels direct and impactful. He does not glamorize it with flashy camera tricks. The camera often stays close, capturing sharp movements and realistic consequences. This grounded approach reinforces the seriousness of McCall's actions. Fuqua also focuses heavily on character presence. He often centers the camera on Denzel Washington's face, allowing small expressions to carry emotional weight. Rather than relying on dialogue to explain feelings, Fuqua trusts performance. This trust creates intimacy between the audience and the character. The director understands that McCall's silence can be more powerful than long speeches. Lighting plays a significant role in Fuqua's direction. Daytime scenes are warm and inviting, showing the charm of the town. Night scenes become darker and more threatening. The contrast between light and shadow mirrors the dual nature of McCall himself. He exists between peace and violence, light and darkness. Fuqua uses visual design to reflect this inner conflict. Fuqua's vision for the trilogy's conclusion feels mature. He does not attempt to introduce complex new mythology or unexpected twists. Instead, he concentrates on emotional closure. The story remains simple and direct. This simplicity is intentional. It allows the focus to remain on McCall's final chapter rather than distracting side elements. The director also handles pacing carefully. He alternates between calm town life and sudden bursts of conflict. This rhythm keeps the audience alert. Just as viewers settle into the peaceful atmosphere, tension returns. Fuqua understands how to manipulate anticipation. He allows quiet scenes to build emotional connections so that violent scenes feel meaningful rather than routine. Another aspect of Fuqua's direction is his treatment of community. The townspeople are not background decoration. He films them in ways that highlight their humanity. Group scenes in cafes or public squares feel authentic and warm. By investing time in these moments, Fuqua raises the stakes of the conflict. When the town is threatened, the audience feels protective. Fuqua also shows confidence by not over-explaining the character's past. He trusts that viewers either know McCall's history or can understand his nature through behavior. This decision keeps the narrative streamlined. The director avoids unnecessary flashbacks or dramatic revelations. The focus remains on present choices. Overall, Antoine Fuqua's direction in The Equalizer 3 reflects clarity and discipline. His vision prioritizes atmosphere, character depth, and emotional resolution over spectacle. He balances calm and chaos with intention. By maintaining tonal consistency while deepening the emotional core, Fuqua delivers a final chapter that feels purposeful and complete. The cinematography of The Equalizer 3 plays a powerful role in shaping the film's mood and identity. Shot by Robert Richardson, the visual style combines natural beauty with controlled darkness. The camera work does not simply capture action. It reflects emotion, tension, and contrast. Through lighting, framing, and color choices, the cinematography strengthens the story's themes of peace and violence. One of the most noticeable visual elements is the Italian setting. The coastal town is filmed with warm sunlight, golden tones, and open skies. The bright daylight scenes create a welcoming and peaceful atmosphere. The sea, mountains, and stone streets are presented in wide, steady shots that allow the audience to breathe. These visuals communicate calmness and community. They show what Robert McCall is trying to protect. In contrast, nighttime scenes are filled with heavy shadows and sharp contrasts. The lighting becomes darker and more dramatic. Streetlights cast long silhouettes. Interiors are often dim, lit by small lamps or natural light sources. This shift in visual tone reflects the hidden criminal presence in the town. The peaceful surface hides a dangerous undercurrent. The cinematography visually separates safety from threat. Close-up shots are used frequently, especially on McCall's face. The camera often lingers on his eyes and subtle expressions. This technique creates intimacy. It allows viewers to feel his internal conflict without spoken explanation. Richardson uses shallow focus in many of these moments, keeping the background soft while McCall remains sharply defined. This draws attention to his emotional state. Wide shots are also important. The film uses landscape views to show scale and isolation. When McCall walks alone through empty streets or stands near the ocean, the framing emphasizes both beauty and solitude. These images remind the audience that he is a man between worlds. He exists in peaceful surroundings, yet carries violent experience within him. The camera movement is controlled and steady. Instead of rapid shaking or chaotic motion, the film relies on smooth tracking shots and careful framing. Even during action sequences, The camera remains clear and focused. This approach makes the violence feel deliberate rather than overwhelming. Viewers can follow each movement without confusion. The clarity adds to the realism of the confrontations. Color grading is another key component of the visual style. Warm tones dominate daytime scenes, with soft yellows and earthy browns. These colors create a sense of life and warmth. In contrast, colder tones appear during moments of danger. Blues and grays subtly enter the frame, especially in night scenes. This shift in color temperature quietly signals tension. Lighting is used symbolically as well. McCall is often positioned between light and shadow. In several scenes, half of his face is illuminated while the other half remains dark. This visual choice reflects his dual nature. He seeks peace but is capable of violence. The cinematography reinforces this inner conflict without direct explanation. Action scenes are filmed with precision. Instead of quick cuts and excessive visual effects, the camera focuses on physical movement and impact. Richardson frames confrontations in tight spaces, increasing tension. Hallways, staircases, and small rooms become intense environments. The limited space adds pressure and immediacy to each encounter. Natural light plays a major role in the film's realism. Outdoor scenes often rely on sunlight rather than artificial brightness. This gives the town an authentic appearance. The warm glow of late afternoon scenes creates a calm mood that contrasts sharply with sudden violence. Composition is carefully balanced throughout the film. Characters are often centered in symmetrical frames when they feel secure. When danger approaches, framing becomes slightly off balance. This subtle shift affects how viewers feel about stability and control. Even without noticing consciously, the audience senses changes in emotional tone through visual structure. Overall, the cinematography of The Equalizer 3 enhances storytelling through contrast, lighting, and careful framing. It highlights the beauty of the setting while maintaining tension. By balancing warmth and shadow, wide landscapes, and intimate close-ups, the visual style supports the film's themes of protection, identity, and final resolution. The editing and pacing of The Equalizer 3 play a major role in shaping the film's emotional tone and overall impact. Unlike many modern action films that rely on fast cuts and constant movement, this movie chooses a more controlled and deliberate rhythm. The editing supports tension, atmosphere, and character focus rather than overwhelming the audience with non-stop spectacle. One of the most noticeable aspects of the pacing is its patience. The film allows scenes to breathe. Conversations are not rushed. Reaction shots are given time to settle. This slower editing style builds a reflective mood. It matches Robert McCall's calm personality and disciplined nature. The editing mirrors the character, precise and intentional. In the early sections of the film, the pacing is especially measured. After the intense opening confrontation, the editing slows down significantly as McCall recovers in the Italian town. The scenes of him walking through streets, observing local life, and sitting quietly in cafes are allowed to unfold naturally. The editor does not cut away quickly. This creates immersion. The audience feels present in the town rather than being pushed forward rapidly. This slower pace is important because it establishes emotional stakes. By spending time with the community, the audience develops attachment. The editing choices make the town feel real and lived in. When conflict later disrupts this peace, the impact feels stronger. Without this deliberate setup, the later action would feel routine. As the central conflict emerges, the pacing begins to tighten gradually. The editing becomes slightly sharper during investigative sequences. Cross-cutting between McCall and the criminal organization builds suspense. These parallel scenes increase tension without relying on loud music or dramatic dialogue. The rhythm slowly accelerates, but it never becomes chaotic. Action sequences are edited with clarity rather than speed. Instead of using rapid cuts to create excitement, the film often allows viewers to see complete movements. Fight scenes are structured in a way that emphasizes cause and effect. Each action leads clearly to the next. This editing style enhances realism. The audience understands the physical space and choreography. Another important element of the editing is restraint. Many action movies extend final battles into long, exhausting sequences. In this film, confrontations are often short and direct. The editor cuts away once the purpose of the scene is fulfilled. There is no unnecessary repetition. This keeps the narrative tight and focused. Transitions between scenes are smooth and subtle. The film rarely uses flashy visual effects or dramatic wipes. Instead, it relies on simple cuts and natural flow. Quiet moments often follow intense scenes, allowing emotional reset. This rhythm creates a wave pattern. Calm leads to tension, tension leads to action, and action returns to calm. Silence also plays a key role in pacing. The editor is not afraid to leave moments without dialogue or heavy sound. These quiet spaces allow tension to build naturally. For example, before a confrontation, the film may linger on a hallway or at an empty street. These pauses increase anticipation. The lack of immediate action makes viewers more alert. The film's runtime is relatively concise, and the editing reflects this efficiency. There are no long subplots or unnecessary diversions. Every scene contributes directly to the central storyline. The narrative moves forward with purpose. This disciplined structure prevents the film from feeling stretched or repetitive. In the final act, the pacing becomes more direct and linear. The editing shortens slightly between scenes as confrontation approaches. However, it never loses clarity. Even at its most intense, the film maintains control. The balance between build-up and payoff feels intentional. Overall, the editing and pacing of The Equalizer 3 emphasize maturity and focus. The film chooses atmosphere over speed, clarity over chaos, and emotional build-up over constant noise. This deliberate rhythm strengthens both character development and tension. By maintaining steady control from beginning to end, the editing supports a story that feels complete and purposeful. The sound design, music, and score of The Equalizer 3 play a subtle but powerful role in shaping the film's emotional experience. Instead of overwhelming the audience with constant loud music or exaggerated sound effects, the film uses restraint and atmosphere. The audio elements support tension, highlight character moments, and deepen immersion without distracting from the story. The musical score was composed by Marcelo Zarvos. His approach is calm, controlled, and emotionally focused. Rather than using large orchestral themes throughout the film, the score often remains minimal. Soft tones, low strings, and quiet background textures create mood instead of demanding attention. This subtle style matches the personality of Robert McCall. The music reflects his quiet strength and internal conflict. In peaceful scenes set in the Italian town, the score is often gentle or nearly absent. Natural sounds take priority. The audience hears footsteps on stone streets, distant ocean waves, conversations in cafes, and church bells ringing in the background. These environmental sounds create authenticity. They make the town feel alive and welcoming. The absence of heavy music in these moments allows viewers to settle into the setting. When tension begins to rise, the music shifts gradually. Instead of sudden loud cues, Zarvos introduces low, steady tones that build suspense slowly. These sounds are often barely noticeable at first. They create unease without clearly signaling danger. This technique allows tension to grow naturally. The audience senses something coming before it happens. During action sequences, the score becomes sharper and more intense, but it remains controlled. The music does not dominate the scene. It supports the rhythm of movement and impact. Quick beats and pulsing tones align with physical confrontations. However, the film does not rely solely on music to create excitement. Often, sound effects carry more weight than the score itself. The sound design in fight scenes is precise and detailed. Every movement has clear audio presence. Footsteps echo in hallways. Doors creak before opening. Small objects hitting the floor create sharp impact. The realism of these sounds increases immersion. Instead of exaggerated explosions or unrealistic effects, the film emphasizes grounded physicality. Silence is one of the most effective tools used in the sound design. Before many confrontations, the soundtrack becomes extremely quiet. Background noise fades. This silence builds anticipation. When action finally breaks the stillness, it feels sudden and intense. The contrast between quiet buildup and sharp impact strengthens emotional response. Dialogue is mixed clearly and evenly. Characters speak in calm tones, and their voices remain steady even in tense moments. The film does not rely on shouting or dramatic yelling to create urgency. This consistent vocal control reflects the overall mature tone of the movie. Conversations feel realistic rather than theatrical. Environmental sound plays a key storytelling role. In daytime scenes, the town feels open and warm through ambient noise. In nighttime scenes, the environment becomes more isolated. Distant wind, subtle echoes, and empty streets create the sense of danger. The sound design mirrors the visual shift from warmth to shadow. Another important element is the use of contrast. The peaceful sounds of community life are intentionally interrupted by sudden violence. A calm street can quickly turn silent before a confrontation. This audio contrast reinforces the film's theme of peace threatened by hidden danger. The score also supports emotional reflection. In quiet scenes where McCall observes the town or sits alone, soft musical tones underscore his internal thoughts. These gentle sounds guide the audience's emotional connection without overpowering the moment. The music allows space for contemplation. Overall, the sound design, music, and score of the Equalizer 3 emphasize subtlety and realism. Marcelo Zarvos provides a restrained and thoughtful soundtrack. Environmental sounds build authenticity. Silence creates tension. Together, these elements shape a mature audio experience that supports character depth and controlled storytelling. The production design of The Equalizer 3 plays a crucial role in shaping the film's atmosphere and emotional tone. Unlike large-scale action movies that rely on artificial environments and oversized sets, this film embraces realism and authenticity. The locations, set decoration, and environmental details work together to create a grounded and immersive world. Every space feels lived in, personal, and meaningful. One of the most significant production decisions was setting the story in southern Italy. The coastal town serves as more than just a backdrop. It becomes part of the narrative. The narrow stone streets, old buildings, small cafes, and open town squares create a strong sense of community. The design team carefully preserved the natural beauty of the region rather than transforming it into something stylized or exaggerated. The town's architecture reflects history and tradition. Weathered walls, uneven cobblestones, wooden shutters, and small balconies add texture to the environment. These details create authenticity. The production design avoids modern distractions, allowing the setting to feel timeless. This timeless quality strengthens the story's focus on morality and justice rather than technology or trends. Interior spaces are equally important. McCall's temporary residence is simple and modest. The room is not filled with luxury or elaborate decoration. Instead, it reflects practicality and quiet living. The simplicity of his surroundings mirrors his personality. He does not seek comfort through material possessions. His space feels temporary, suggesting a man who has never fully settled anywhere. Cafes and local shops are designed with warmth and familiarity. Wooden tables, soft lighting, and close seating arrangements create intimacy. These spaces feel welcoming. They allow the audience to understand why McCall begins to care about the town. The production design makes these locations emotionally significant. When danger enters these spaces, the disruption feels personal. The contrast between peaceful town areas and criminal environments is carefully constructed. Locations associated with organized crime are darker and more confined. Industrial buildings, shadowed rooms, and guarded entrances create tension. The design team uses limited lighting and harsher textures in these spaces. Metal surfaces, concrete walls, and minimal decoration reflect coldness and control. Outdoor locations also enhance storytelling. The coastline, hills, and open skies create visual openness. These landscapes symbolize freedom and possibility. When McCall stands near the sea or walks through sunlit streets, the production design communicates hope. This hopeful environment contrasts with his violent past. Attention to small details adds realism. Street signs, market displays, and background props feel natural rather than staged. Extras blend seamlessly into scenes, creating believable daily life. The design avoids overly polished appearances. Instead, it embraces minor imperfections. This choice strengthens authenticity. Color coordination within sets supports emotional tone. Warm earth tones dominate peaceful locations. Browns, yellows, and soft oranges create comfort. In contrast, criminal settings lean toward darker shades such as gray and deep blue. This visual separation helps viewers understand emotional shifts without dialogue. The use of practical locations instead of heavy digital enhancement adds weight to the film. Real streets and buildings provide texture that cannot easily be replicated. The natural environment interacts with lighting and camera movement in organic ways. This authenticity supports the film's grounded action style. Public gathering spaces play an important role in the story. Town squares and community events are staged to emphasize unity. Long tables, shared meals, and open conversations highlight collective identity. These carefully designed scenes visually reinforce the theme of community under threat. Overall, the production design of the Equalizer 3 strengthens emotional connection through realism and contrast. Authentic Italian locations provide beauty and warmth. Darker spaces associated with crime create tension. The careful balance between these environments supports the film's themes of protection and belonging. Every location feels purposeful and contributes to the story's final chapter. The Equalizer 3 relies heavily on practical effects and grounded realism rather than large-scale digital spectacle. This creative choice supports the mature tone of the film and strengthens its sense of authenticity. Instead of overwhelming viewers with computer-generated imagery, the production focuses on physical stunts, real environments, and carefully controlled visual enhancements. The result is action that feels immediate and believable. One of the most important aspects of the film's visual approach is restraint. The story does not require massive explosions or unrealistic destruction. Most confrontations occur in tight spaces such as hallways, small rooms, staircases, or narrow streets. Because of this, practical stunt work becomes the foundation of each action sequence. Actors and stunt performers execute carefully choreographed movements that are captured clearly by the camera. Fight scenes are designed to feel precise and efficient. The physical effects, including impacts, falls, and object interactions, are performed in real time. When a character is thrown against a wall or falls onto a hard surface, the contact appears authentic. These practical elements increase tension because viewers can sense physical weight and consequence. Blood effects and injury details are also handled through practical techniques combined with subtle digital enhancement. Makeup and prosthetics create visible wounds that look realistic without becoming exaggerated. Digital tools are used carefully to refine certain details, but they do not dominate the image. This balance keeps the violence grounded rather than stylized. Gunfire sequences rely on controlled practical effects as well. Muzzle flashes, bullet impacts, and environmental damage are created with a combination of on-set techniques and post-production touch-ups. Sparks, debris, and broken glass feel physical. The sound design works closely with these effects to create convincing impact. The absence of over-exaggerated explosions reinforces realism. The film's setting in southern Italy further supports practical filmmaking. Because much of the movie was shot on location, natural environments serve as built-in visual value. The production does not need to create artificial backdrops through heavy computer graphics. Real coastal landscapes, historic architecture, and textured streets provide depth and dimension that enhance authenticity. Digital effects are used primarily for enhancement rather than spectacle. For example, certain environmental adjustments, background cleanups, or safety measures are completed digitally. These subtle additions remain invisible to the average viewer. The goal is not to impress with obvious computer-generated imagery but to maintain immersion. Action choreography emphasizes timing and clarity rather than acrobatics. The camera captures full-body movements, allowing audiences to follow each step of a confrontation. This clarity reduces the need for digital trickery. Instead of masking stunt doubles or altering physics, The film embraces realistic movement. Weather and atmosphere also play a subtle role. Night scenes use controlled lighting and practical environmental elements to create mood. Rain, wind, and shadows are captured naturally or enhanced gently in post-production. These details contribute to tension without drawing attention to special effects. One of the strengths of the practical approach is consistency. Because the film avoids heavy reliance on computer graphics, the visual tone remains stable from beginning to end. There are no sudden shifts into unrealistic spectacle. This stability aligns with the character of Robert McCall, who operates with discipline and precision. The filmmakers clearly chose quality over excess. By focusing on practical stunt work, realistic injuries, and authentic environments, they created action sequences that feel personal and direct. The violence is not exaggerated for entertainment value alone. It carries consequence and weight. Overall, the visual effects and practical effects in the Equalizer 3 support a grounded storytelling style. Practical stunts, controlled enhancements, and authentic locations combine to create believable action. The restrained use of digital tools ensures that the focus remains on character and tension rather than spectacle. This approach strengthens the film's mature tone and reinforces its identity as a realistic action thriller. The screenplay of The Equalizer 3 focuses on clarity, restraint, and character consistency. Written with a strong understanding of Robert McCall's established personality, the dialogue avoids unnecessary complexity. Instead of long speeches or dramatic emotional breakdowns, the script relies on simple, direct communication. This approach aligns with the mature tone of the film and reinforces its grounded style. One of the defining qualities of the dialogue is minimalism. McCall speaks only when necessary. His words are measured and intentional. He does not waste language. When he delivers a warning, it is calm and precise. This restraint gives his lines power. Because he rarely raises his voice, any slight change in tone carries weight. The screenplay understands that silence can be more threatening than loud anger. The conversations between McCall and the townspeople are gentle and respectful. These interactions are written with warmth and simplicity. There are no overly dramatic exchanges. Instead, the dialogue reflects everyday life. Greetings, small talk, and quiet gratitude build authenticity. These simple exchanges help the audience see McCall in a softer light. The screenplay uses ordinary conversations to reveal emotional growth without directly stating it. Emma Collins, the CIA officer, represents another layer of dialogue style. Her lines are professional and investigative. She asks direct questions and responds thoughtfully. The screenplay gives her intelligence without turning her into a dramatic foil. When she interacts with McCall, the dialogue remains subtle. They speak with mutual respect. There is no forced tension or unnecessary conflict between them. Their exchanges feel realistic and balanced. The antagonist's dialogue is written with controlled menace. Instead of constant shouting or exaggerated villain speeches, their lines are calm but intimidating. This choice makes them more believable. They express power through confidence rather than noise. The screenplay avoids cliché threats and instead relies on short, direct statements that imply danger. A key strength of the screenplay is pacing within conversations. Scenes are structured with pauses and breathing space. Characters often respond after a moment of silence. These pauses create tension and realism. The script does not rush from line to line. This measured rhythm supports the film's overall pacing. Another important element is consistency in McCall's moral voice. Throughout the trilogy, he has operated by a personal code. The dialogue in this final chapter reinforces that code without repeating old phrases. He does not explain his philosophy directly. Instead, it is revealed through short, thoughtful statements. His words often suggest fairness, protection, and accountability. The screenplay also avoids excessive exposition. It does not rely on long explanations of background information. Viewers are trusted to understand context through action and reaction. This restraint keeps the narrative focused. Instead of overloading scenes with details, the script allows events to speak for themselves. Emotional moments are handled quietly. When McCall begins to connect with the community, the dialogue remains understated. There are no dramatic declarations about belonging or redemption. Instead, small exchanges communicate trust and acceptance. This subtle writing approach feels mature and earned. Humor is present but extremely limited. The screenplay does not rely on jokes to relieve tension. Any light moments come naturally through character interaction rather than scripted punchlines. This choice maintains tonal consistency. In action scenes, dialogue becomes even more minimal. Short warnings or final statements precede confrontations. The script avoids long monologues before fights. This efficiency enhances realism. In dangerous situations, people do not deliver speeches. They act. Overall, the dialogue and screenplay of The Equalizer 3 prioritize restraint, realism, and character consistency. Simple language, measured pacing, and subtle emotional cues shape the narrative. The script understands that power often comes from what is not said. By keeping conversations focused and intentional, the screenplay supports the film's mature tone and final chapter atmosphere. The Equalizer 3 firmly belongs to the action thriller genre, but it executes that genre with maturity and restraint. Instead of focusing only on spectacle and non-stop excitement, the film blends action with crime drama and quiet character study. This balance allows it to stand apart from typical high-energy action movies. The tone remains serious and controlled, even during intense sequences. From the beginning, the film establishes a grounded thriller atmosphere. The opening scene delivers violence, but it is not exaggerated or stylized. The action is sharp and realistic. This immediately signals that the movie will treat conflict seriously. There is no comedic framing of danger. The tone is heavy and purposeful. The genre execution emphasizes consequence rather than entertainment alone. As the story transitions to the peaceful Italian town, the tone shifts noticeably. The film briefly moves toward a slower, almost reflective drama style. These quieter scenes focus on environment, community, and emotional recovery. The action thriller elements pause, allowing viewers to settle into a sense of calm. This shift is intentional. It strengthens the contrast between safety and threat. The balance between peace and danger is central to the film's genre identity. The movie repeatedly moves between calm town life and sudden bursts of violence. However, these shifts never feel random. The tone changes gradually. Music softens. Lighting warms. Dialogue becomes lighter. Then tension slowly returns through darker visuals and minimal sound. These controlled adjustments prevent the film from feeling uneven. Unlike many action films that rely on humor to balance intensity, The Equalizer 3 maintains a consistent serious tone. There are very few comedic moments. The film does not use jokes to relieve tension. This choice reinforces realism. The absence of lighthearted distractions keeps the focus on justice and protection. The thriller aspect of the genre is executed through suspense rather than constant action. The audience often knows that danger is present before characters confront it directly. Quiet investigation scenes build anticipation. Small signs of criminal control, such as intimidation and silence, create unease. The film trusts atmosphere to carry tension instead of relying only on explosions or chases. When action sequences occur, they are brief but impactful. This approach avoids fatigue. Many action films stretch combat scenes for spectacle. Here, confrontations are direct and purposeful. The tone remains controlled even during violence. There is no shift into exaggerated heroism. The genre execution stays grounded. Another important tone shift occurs in the final act. As the conflict becomes more direct, the pace tightens. The atmosphere grows darker. Night scenes dominate. However, the film does not abandon its reflective core. Even during final confrontations, there is emotional weight. The tone remains consistent with the character's maturity. The film also incorporates elements of crime drama. The organized crime presence is portrayed realistically. There are no cartoonish villains. The criminals operate quietly and strategically. This grounded portrayal strengthens the thriller aspect and keeps the genre execution believable. Emotionally, the tone evolves alongside Robert McCall. At first, there is distance and fatigue. As he connects with the community, the tone warms slightly. When the town is threatened, urgency replaces calm. These tonal shifts mirror his internal journey. The genre elements support character development rather than overshadow it. Importantly, the film avoids dramatic tonal extremes. It does not suddenly become comedic or overly tragic. The emotional range stays within a narrow but effective spectrum. This disciplined approach ensures consistency from beginning to end. Overall, The Equalizer 3 executes the action thriller genre with restraint and maturity. It balances calm drama with precise violence. Tone shifts are gradual and purposeful. By maintaining seriousness and realism, the film delivers a final chapter that feels controlled, focused, and emotionally grounded. The Equalizer 3 carries several strong themes that shape the emotional foundation of the story. While the film functions as an action thriller on the surface, its deeper core focuses on identity, redemption, belonging, justice, and the possibility of peace after a violent life. These themes are not presented through dramatic speeches. Instead, they are revealed through character behavior, setting, and quiet decisions. One of the central themes is the search for peace. Robert McCall has spent years using his skills to confront injustice. However, in this final chapter, he is no longer chasing missions. He is looking for rest. The peaceful Italian town represents the possibility of a new beginning. The warm environment, kind neighbors, and slow daily life symbolize the calm he desires. This theme raises an important question. Can someone who has lived through violence ever truly find peace? Another key theme is identity. McCall struggles with who he is beyond his past as a government operative. He has always defined himself through action and protection. In this story, he faces the challenge of existing without conflict. The film explores whether his violent abilities are simply tools or essential parts of his identity. Ultimately, the theme suggests that identity cannot be erased, but it can be redirected toward meaningful purpose. Belonging is also a powerful message throughout the film. In earlier chapters, McCall often moved from place to place. He helped strangers and disappeared again. Here, he begins to form connections within a community. He drinks coffee with locals. He attends public gatherings. He learns names and faces. These simple interactions symbolize acceptance. For the first time, he considers staying somewhere permanently. The theme of belonging adds emotional depth to his decisions. Justice remains a core message in the trilogy and continues strongly here. However, the film presents justice as personal responsibility rather than institutional duty. McCall does not act because he is ordered to. He acts because he believes it is morally necessary. The theme suggests that justice sometimes requires individual courage when systems fail. At the same time, the story avoids glorifying violence. It presents action as a serious response to oppression, not a celebration of power. Protection of the innocent is another major theme. The townspeople live under quiet fear from organized crime. Their silence reflects vulnerability. McCall's involvement is not driven by revenge or personal gain. It is driven by protection. The film repeatedly shows children playing, families gathering, and businesses struggling. These images highlight what is at stake. The theme emphasizes defending community rather than seeking dominance. Redemption also plays an important role. McCall's past includes violence and secrecy. While he believes his actions serve justice, he carries emotional weight from years of conflict. By choosing to protect the town, he seeks a form of redemption. Not through confession or apology, but through continued service. The film suggests that redemption is not about changing the past. It is about choosing the right actions in the present. A quieter theme involves aging and legacy. McCall is no longer in his prime. His physical limitations are visible. This reality introduces the idea of legacy. What remains after a lifetime of conflict? The film answers this by showing that legacy is defined by impact on others. His protection allows the community to live freely. That freedom becomes his lasting mark. The theme of balance is present as well. McCall cannot completely escape his violent skills, but he can control when and why he uses them. The story proposes that balance between strength and restraint defines moral character. Overall, The Equalizer 3 delivers themes that go beyond action. It explores peace, identity, belonging, justice, redemption, aging, and moral balance. These messages are woven into character choices and setting rather than spoken directly. By grounding its action within these deeper ideas, the film closes the trilogy with emotional meaning and reflective weight. The Equalizer 3 uses symbolism in subtle and controlled ways. The film does not rely on obvious visual metaphors or dramatic symbolic speeches. Instead, it integrates meaning into its setting, lighting, character behavior, and repeated visual patterns. These symbolic elements deepen the story's emotional impact without distracting from its grounded tone. One of the strongest symbols in the film is the Italian coastal town itself. The town represents peace, community, and the possibility of renewal. Its warm sunlight, open spaces, and welcoming residents symbolize hope. For Robert McCall, this place becomes more than a location. It stands for a life he has never fully experienced. The calm environment symbolizes the future he wants but is unsure he deserves. The ocean is another powerful symbol. Throughout the film, the sea appears as a vast and steady presence. Water often represents cleansing or renewal in storytelling. Here, the ocean reflects the idea of washing away the past. When McCall looks out at the water, it suggests reflection and emotional distance from his violent history. The endless horizon also symbolizes possibility. It shows that life can continue beyond conflict. Light and shadow carry strong symbolic meaning as well. McCall is frequently framed between brightness and darkness. In peaceful moments, he stands in sunlight. During confrontations, shadows dominate his presence. This contrast represents his dual nature. He is capable of kindness and violence at the same time. The shifting balance between light and shadow symbolizes his internal struggle. The town square functions as a symbol of unity. It is a space where residents gather, talk, and celebrate. Public gatherings there represent collective strength. When the square feels empty or tense, it symbolizes fear and oppression. When it returns to life, it represents restored freedom. The repeated use of this communal space reinforces the theme of belonging. Food and shared meals also carry hidden meaning. Scenes of people sitting together at cafes or public tables symbolize connection. These ordinary moments highlight the simple life McCall begins to appreciate. Sharing food represents trust and acceptance. For a man who has often lived alone, these gestures symbolize emotional opening. McCall's physical injuries at the beginning of the film hold symbolic weight. His wounded body reflects accumulated emotional scars. The pain he experiences symbolizes the cost of his past life. As he heals physically, he also moves toward emotional healing. Recovery becomes a symbol of renewal. Silence is another symbolic tool. Long pauses and quiet scenes represent reflection. Silence suggests discipline and control. In tense moments, silence becomes heavy, symbolizing approaching danger. The absence of sound before action highlights the seriousness of choices being made. Doors and thresholds appear repeatedly. McCall often stands at doorways before entering rooms. These visual moments symbolize transition. Each doorway represents a choice between peace and confrontation. Crossing a threshold signals commitment to action. This repeated imagery reinforces the idea that every violent act is a deliberate decision. The organized crime presence symbolizes corruption hidden beneath beauty. The town appears peaceful on the surface, but fear exists quietly underneath. This contrast symbolizes how injustice can hide within ordinary life. McCall's role becomes symbolic of exposing darkness that others tolerate out of fear. The church and religious imagery within the town also carry meaning. Bells ringing and sacred spaces suggest morality and conscience. These elements symbolize higher judgment. While McCall operates outside formal law, his actions align with moral protection. The presence of religious settings reinforces themes of justice and accountability. Even McCall's calm demeanor is symbolic. His steady posture and quiet voice represent control. In a chaotic world, he symbolizes order. His presence alone often shifts the balance of power. He represents the idea that true strength does not require noise. Overall, symbolism in the Equalizer 3 remains subtle but meaningful. The town represents peace and belonging. The ocean symbolizes renewal. Light and shadow reflect dual identity. Shared spaces represent unity. Through these visual and thematic symbols, the film adds depth to its final chapter without losing realism. The Equalizer may appear at first glance to be a straightforward action thriller, but beneath its surface it offers meaningful social and cultural commentary. The film does not present direct political speeches or heavy ideological debates. Instead, it reflects on power, corruption, community strength, and individual responsibility through its narrative and setting. These themes create subtle commentary about justice and society. One of the clearest social commentaries in the film involves organized crime and its impact on everyday life. The Italian town is peaceful and beautiful, yet it lives under quiet control from a criminal organization. This situation reflects a broader issue found in many societies where corruption exists beneath calm appearances. The townspeople continue daily routines, but fear shapes their choices. The film comments on how criminal power can become normalized when communities feel powerless to resist. The portrayal of organized crime is not exaggerated into fantasy. It is presented as systematic and strategic. The criminals do not constantly display loud violence. Instead, they use intimidation, economic pressure, and fear. This reflects real-world concerns about how corruption spreads quietly through influence and control rather than open warfare. The commentary suggests that injustice often thrives when fear prevents collective action. Another important cultural layer comes from the depiction of community. The town represents traditional values such as shared meals, public gatherings, and mutual respect. These cultural elements highlight the importance of unity. The film suggests that strong communities can endure hardship, but they require courage to defend themselves. When Robert McCall chooses to protect the town, the story emphasizes that individuals can strengthen collective resistance. The film also explores the limitations of institutional systems. Through the character of CIA officer Emma Collins, the narrative shows formal investigation and legal processes. However, these systems move slowly and face obstacles. McCall operates outside official authority. This contrast raises questions about whether justice always functions effectively within established systems. The film does not argue against law enforcement, but it suggests that bureaucracy sometimes struggles against organized corruption. Another social commentary involves aging and relevance. McCall is no longer a young operative. He represents experience rather than raw energy. The film subtly challenges the cultural idea that strength belongs only to youth. His discipline, patience, and moral clarity demonstrate that wisdom can be more powerful than physical dominance. This perspective adds depth to the typical action hero image. The movie also comments on migration and belonging. McCall is an outsider in a foreign land. Despite cultural differences, he is welcomed by the community. This dynamic suggests that shared values of kindness and justice can cross national boundaries. The film portrays cultural respect rather than conflict. McCall does not attempt to change the town's traditions. Instead, he adapts quietly. This portrayal promotes mutual respect between cultures. Fear and silence are also important themes. The townspeople initially avoid confrontation because they fear consequences. This reflects how communities under pressure often choose survival over resistance. The film comments on the cost of silence. When fear dominates public life, injustice grows stronger. McCall's intervention symbolizes breaking that silence. At the same time, the movie avoids glorifying vigilantism without reflection. McCall's actions carry seriousness. Violence is portrayed as a last resort rather than entertainment. The commentary suggests that force should be controlled and purposeful, not impulsive. Economically, the film touches on exploitation. Criminal control affects local businesses and livelihoods. This highlights how organized crime can damage economic stability. The town's recovery represents restoration not only of safety but also of independence. Overall, The Equalizer 3 delivers subtle social and cultural commentary through its setting and character choices. It reflects on corruption, fear, community unity, institutional limits, aging, and cross-cultural respect. By embedding these ideas within a grounded action story, the film offers reflection without heavy political messaging. The Equalizer 3 contains several scenes that leave a lasting impression because of their emotional weight, tension, and controlled intensity. These moments are not memorable simply because of violence. They stand out because of atmosphere, performance, and meaning within the larger story. Each key scene reinforces the film's themes of protection, identity, and final resolution. The opening confrontation is one of the most striking scenes in the film. It immediately establishes tone and stakes. The environment is tense, and the aftermath of violence is shown clearly. Instead of presenting action as glamorous, the scene feels serious and heavy. This moment reminds viewers of Robert McCall's capability while also revealing vulnerability. His physical injury adds realism and signals that this story will carry consequence. Another impactful scene occurs when McCall first begins interacting with the residents of the Italian town. These quiet moments may not seem dramatic, but they carry emotional power. Watching him sit at a cafe, observe children playing, and exchange small conversations shows a softer side. The warmth of the setting contrasts with his past life. These scenes become memorable because they reveal what he is fighting to protect. A powerful turning point comes when the criminal organization openly intimidates members of the community. The shift from subtle fear to visible threat creates strong tension. The silence of the townspeople during these moments is particularly impactful. Their hesitation and lowered voices communicate oppression without dramatic dialogue. The emotional weight of fear becomes clear. One of the most memorable action sequences happens in a confined indoor space. The tight environment increases intensity. Instead of chaotic movement, the scene unfolds with precision. Every step and reaction feels calculated. The clarity of the choreography makes the confrontation feel real rather than exaggerated. The controlled pacing builds suspense before each decisive action. Another significant scene involves McCall's quiet reflection near the ocean. There is little dialogue, yet the moment carries deep emotional meaning. The vast horizon symbolizes possibility and peace. His still posture and distant gaze communicate internal struggle. This scene stands out because it allows viewers to feel his longing for rest without spoken explanation. The interactions between McCall and Emma Collins also provide memorable moments. Their conversations are calm but layered with understanding. In one key exchange, their mutual respect becomes evident. There is no dramatic conflict between them. Instead, their dialogue suggests recognition of shared purpose. These scenes stand out for their maturity and restraint. A later confrontation involving one of the criminal leaders is particularly impactful because of its build-up. The scene is not rushed. Tension increases gradually. The use of silence before the encounter heightens anticipation. When action finally occurs, it is brief but decisive. The sudden shift from quiet to movement makes the scene unforgettable. Community gatherings in the town square provide emotionally resonant moments as well. Seeing residents return to public celebration after fear has lifted creates a sense of triumph. These scenes are not explosive, yet they carry emotional payoff. The restored normalcy feels earned. The simple act of people laughing and sharing space becomes meaningful. The final confrontation in the film is memorable not because of scale, but because of personal stakes. The conflict feels intimate and purposeful. The pacing remains controlled. There are no exaggerated speeches or extended sequences. The scene resolves tension efficiently, reinforcing the character's disciplined nature. The closing moments of the film leave a lasting impression through calm rather than spectacle. The return to peaceful surroundings mirrors earlier scenes, but with emotional difference. The town feels freer. McCall appears more settled. This quiet resolution stands out because it completes the narrative circle. Overall, the most impactful scenes in The Equalizer 3 combine atmosphere, restraint, and emotional depth. From intense confrontations to silent reflections, each memorable moment supports the film's mature tone. The balance between violence and peace creates scenes that resonate beyond simple action. The Equalizer 3 can be better understood when compared to similar action thrillers and to other films directed by Antoine Fuqua. While it shares common elements with modern revenge-driven stories, it distinguishes itself through tone, pacing, and character maturity. Looking at these comparisons highlights what makes this final chapter unique. Within its own trilogy, The Equalizer 3 feels more reflective than the first two films. The original introduced Robert McCall as a quiet but highly capable protector operating in an urban American environment. The second film expanded his personal connections and emotional stakes. The third installment narrows its focus and slows its rhythm. Instead of escalating scale, it deepens emotional resolution. Compared to the earlier entries, this film is less about surprise and more about closure. When compared to other modern action franchises, such as stories centered on highly trained operatives seeking revenge, The Equalizer 3 stands apart through restraint. Many similar films emphasize elaborate choreography, large-scale chases, and global stakes. In contrast, this story remains local and personal. The threat is concentrated within a small community. The action sequences are shorter and more grounded. This focus on intimacy rather than spectacle creates a different emotional experience. The character of Robert McCall can be compared to other aging action protagonists who continue operating despite physical limitations. However, unlike characters who rely on humor or exaggerated resilience, McCall's portrayal remains serious and disciplined. The film acknowledges aging without turning it into a comedic element. This mature treatment of the hero sets it apart from lighter action stories. Antoine Fuqua's directorial style in The Equalizer 3 reflects qualities seen in his earlier works. In films such as Training Day, Fuqua explored moral complexity within crime-ridden environments. That same interest in ethical tension appears here. The director focuses on atmosphere and character choices rather than simple good versus evil narratives. The criminals are threatening but not cartoonish, and the protagonist operates within moral gray areas. Fuqua is also known for balancing intensity with grounded realism. In several of his previous projects, action scenes are direct and impactful rather than flashy. The Equalizer 3 continues that approach. The violence feels purposeful and contained. This consistency shows the director's preference for emotional weight over spectacle. Compared to large-scale blockbuster action films, The Equalizer 3 feels more intimate and character-driven. It avoids complex mythology or interconnected cinematic universes. The narrative remains straightforward. This simplicity allows deeper focus on tone and atmosphere. In this way, the film resembles classic revenge dramas rather than modern franchise spectacles. The Italian setting also creates distinction. Many action thrillers use major cities as backdrops for chaos. By choosing a small coastal town, the film changes visual identity and emotional stakes. This choice makes the story feel closer to a character study than a global conflict. In terms of tone, The Equalizer 3 aligns more closely with slow-burn thrillers than high-speed action adventures. Its pacing resembles crime dramas that build tension gradually. This deliberate rhythm separates it from films that rely on constant adrenaline. Overall, when compared to similar movies and to Antoine Fuqua's previous works, The Equalizer 3 stands out through restraint, maturity, and emotional focus. It prioritizes atmosphere over scale and reflection over escalation. These differences make it feel like a thoughtful conclusion rather than simply another action sequel. The ending of The Equalizer 3 delivers closure in a calm and meaningful way rather than through explosive spectacle. It completes Robert McCall's journey by focusing on emotional resolution instead of dramatic surprise. To understand the ending fully, it is important to look at both the final confrontation and the quiet moments that follow. As the story moves into its final act, the criminal organization realizes that someone is actively dismantling its control over the town. The tension increases when the remaining leaders attempt to reassert power through intimidation and violence. This escalation forces McCall to make a final choice. He can either step away and protect his own peace, or he can confront the threat directly and secure freedom for the community. The climactic confrontation is direct and personal. It does not rely on large-scale destruction or elaborate set pieces. Instead, It focuses on targeted action. McCall methodically eliminates the remaining criminal leadership. The controlled nature of the sequence reinforces his disciplined personality. There are no extended speeches or dramatic emotional breakdowns. The resolution is efficient and purposeful. Importantly, the final confrontation symbolizes more than just physical victory. It represents McCall's acceptance of who he is. Throughout the film, he has struggled with the idea of leaving violence behind. In the end, he understands that his skills are part of him. However, he chooses to use them not out of habit or obligation, but out of protection. This distinction is central to interpreting the ending. After the conflict concludes, the tone shifts back to calm. The town begins to return to normal life. Public spaces feel open again. Conversations are relaxed. Fear is no longer visible in daily interactions. These scenes mirror earlier peaceful moments but carry new meaning. Now the calm feels earned rather than fragile. The restoration of community life represents justice achieved. One of the most important aspects of the ending is McCall's decision to stay. In previous chapters, he often disappeared after completing his mission. This time, he remains. His choice suggests belonging. The town has become more than a temporary stop. It is now home. This decision symbolizes emotional resolution. He is no longer wandering between missions. He has found a place where his presence is welcomed. The ocean imagery near the conclusion reinforces renewal. The calm water reflects stability and reflection. It suggests that McCall has finally reached balance. He has not erased his past, but he has found peace with it. The endless horizon symbolizes continuation rather than escape. Life moves forward without constant conflict. Emma Collins' presence in the ending also carries meaning. She acknowledges McCall's actions without direct confrontation. Their understanding suggests mutual respect between official systems and personal justice. The film does not position them as enemies. Instead, it presents coexistence. This reinforces the idea that justice can take multiple forms. The final interpretation of the ending centers on identity and acceptance. McCall does not transform into someone new. He does not renounce his abilities or seek forgiveness through confession. Instead, he integrates his past with his present. He becomes both protector and neighbor. That balance defines his closure. The film avoids tragic sacrifice or dramatic farewell. Instead of ending with loss, it ends with quiet stability. This choice makes the conclusion feel mature. The story suggests that redemption is not about grand gestures. It is about consistent, purposeful action. Overall, the ending of The Equalizer 3 completes Robert McCall's arc through acceptance, belonging, and balance. The final scenes emphasize peace restored and identity embraced. Rather than seeking spectacle, the film closes on calm resolution, leaving the audience with a sense of completion and earned tranquility. The Equalizer 3 was produced with a reported budget of approximately $70 million. This budget places it in the mid-range category for modern action films. It is significantly lower than massive franchise blockbusters that often exceed $150 or $200 million, yet it remains substantial enough to support international filming, experienced cast members, detailed production design, and carefully choreographed action sequences. The controlled budget reflects the film's grounded approach. Rather than relying on expensive digital spectacle, the production invested in practical locations, performance-driven storytelling, and focused action. A significant portion of the budget likely went toward location shooting in southern Italy. Filming in real towns and coastal regions adds authenticity, but it also requires logistical planning, travel coordination, and local production partnerships. However, using real environments can sometimes reduce the need for costly digital sets or large-scale studio construction. This balanced allocation of resources aligns with the film's restrained visual style. Denzel Washington's involvement also represents a major financial component. As an Academy Award-winning actor and established box office presence, his salary would naturally form a meaningful part of the overall production cost. His consistent presence across the trilogy has been a key factor in audience loyalty. The financial investment in a strong lead performer demonstrates confidence in character-driven storytelling rather than spectacle alone. The film was released theatrically in early September 2023, strategically positioned during the Labor Day weekend in the United States. This release window often provides strong performance opportunities for action films, as audiences seek high-energy entertainment during the holiday period. The Equalizer 3 opened solidly, earning a strong debut weekend total that placed it at the top of the domestic box office at the time of release. Over its theatrical run, the film generated steady revenue both domestically and internationally. While it did not reach the extreme global totals of major superhero franchises, it performed consistently within expectations for a mature rated action thriller. The global box office earnings surpassed the production budget comfortably, allowing the film to achieve profitability when combined with marketing strategies and later home entertainment distribution. International markets contributed meaningfully to overall revenue. The Italian setting may have increased interest in European territories. Additionally, Denzel Washington's global recognition helped attract audiences beyond North America. The film's straightforward action premise translated well across different markets, even without heavy reliance on complex mythology. Critical reception for The Equalizer 3 was mixed to positive. Many reviewers praised Denzel Washington's performance, highlighting his controlled intensity and subtle emotional depth. Critics also appreciated the Italian setting, noting that the change in location refreshed the franchise's atmosphere. The film's shorter runtime and focused narrative received positive attention for maintaining tension without overstaying its welcome. Some critics, however, observed that the story followed a familiar formula consistent with earlier installments. While acknowledging the film's competence, certain reviews suggested that it did not significantly reinvent the genre. Despite this, the general consensus recognized it as a strong and satisfying conclusion to the trilogy. Audience reception leaned more positive than critical opinion. Viewers who were already invested in the character responded strongly to the emotional closure provided in this final chapter. Many appreciated the mature tone and measured pacing. The absence of excessive spectacle was seen by fans as a strength rather than a weakness. CinemaScore polling reflected solid audience satisfaction, indicating that viewers found the experience engaging and worthwhile. Word of mouth helped sustain box office performance beyond opening weekend. The film's R-rating limited younger audiences but ensured tonal consistency with previous entries. In the broader context of the trilogy, The Equalizer 3 performed comparably to its predecessors. It demonstrated that character-driven action films centered on experienced performers can remain commercially viable without relying on cinematic universes or heavy special effects. Overall, the film achieved financial success relative to its budget, maintained franchise consistency, and delivered a conclusion that satisfied core audiences. Its measured production spending, solid box office returns, and steady reception confirm its position as a commercially successful and critically respectable final chapter. The Equalizer 3 offers strong rewatch value, especially for viewers who appreciate character-driven action films with emotional depth. Unlike fast-paced blockbusters that rely mainly on surprise twists or massive spectacle, this film builds its strength through atmosphere, performance, and subtle storytelling. Because of this, repeated viewings allow audiences to notice details that may not stand out during the first watch. One reason the film holds up well on rewatch is its controlled pacing. The story unfolds deliberately, allowing space for quiet moments and visual storytelling. On a second viewing, viewers can pay closer attention to the small expressions on Robert McCall's face, the subtle shifts in lighting, and the background details in the town. These elements add layers that become more meaningful when the viewer already knows how the story concludes. The Italian setting also enhances rewatch value. The warm coastal scenery, narrow streets, and public squares create a visually pleasing environment. Watching the film again allows audiences to appreciate how the peaceful surroundings contrast with underlying tension. The beauty of the location is not just decorative. It reflects the theme of peace that McCall seeks. Noticing this connection deepens the experience on future viewings. Denzel Washington's performance is another reason the film remains engaging over time. His portrayal is subtle and restrained. He often communicates emotion through silence rather than speech. On repeat viewing, these quiet moments become more powerful. Viewers may catch small gestures or expressions that reveal his internal conflict more clearly. The action sequences also benefit from rewatching. Because they are filmed with clarity rather than rapid editing, viewers can follow the choreography and physical movement in detail. Each confrontation feels purposeful. Watching again allows appreciation of how efficiently each scene is constructed without unnecessary repetition. Another factor that supports rewatch value is thematic depth. The film explores identity, belonging, aging, and redemption. These themes resonate differently depending on the viewer's perspective. Someone watching at a later stage of life may connect more strongly with the idea of seeking peace after years of struggle. The emotional messages remain relevant beyond the initial release. For fans of the trilogy, The Equalizer 3 gains additional meaning when viewed as the final chapter. Rewatching it after revisiting the first two films enhances continuity. The audience can observe how McCall has evolved across the series. His growth feels more complete when the full arc is considered. The film also avoids excessive complexity, which makes it accessible for repeated viewing. The storyline is clear and focused. There are no confusing timelines or heavy exposition to remember. This straightforward structure allows viewers to relax and engage with character and atmosphere. In terms of audience takeaway, the film leaves a message about balance and responsibility. It suggests that strength is not defined by noise or aggression, but by discipline and purpose. McCall's journey demonstrates that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of stability earned through action. Another takeaway centers on community. The film emphasizes that belonging can transform a person's sense of purpose. McCall's decision to stay reflects the value of connection. Viewers are reminded that even individuals with troubled pasts can find place and meaning within a supportive environment. The movie also highlights the importance of standing against injustice. It presents the idea that fear allows corruption to grow, while courage restores balance. However, it frames action as thoughtful and controlled rather than impulsive. Overall, The Equalizer 3 maintains strong rewatch value through atmosphere, performance, and emotional depth. Its audience takeaway focuses on peace, identity, belonging, and purposeful strength. These elements ensure that the film remains meaningful beyond a single viewing experience. The Equalizer 3 was released theatrically in September 2023 and followed the traditional distribution path of modern studio films. For viewers who did not experience it in cinemas, there are several convenient ways to watch it at home. Availability may vary slightly depending on country or region, but the film has been widely distributed across physical and digital platforms. After its theatrical run, the movie became available for digital rental and digital purchase. Major digital platforms typically offer high-definition and ultra-high-definition viewing options. Renting allows viewers to stream the film for a limited time window, while purchasing provides permanent access within the platform's library. This flexibility allows audiences to choose based on preference and budget. The film was also released on Blu-ray and DVD formats. Physical media remains popular among collectors and fans who prefer stable quality without depending on internet speed. Blu-ray editions often include additional features such as behind-the-scenes content, interviews, and production insights. For viewers interested in filmmaking details, these extras can add value beyond the movie itself. In addition to digital purchase and physical media, the film eventually became available on subscription streaming services. The specific streaming platform may differ depending on region due to distribution agreements. In the United States, films distributed by Sony Pictures often rotate through major streaming partners after their digital release period. International audiences may find it available on local streaming services aligned with Sony's licensing arrangements. When choosing how to watch The Equalizer 3, viewing environment can enhance the experience. Because the film relies on atmosphere and subtle sound design, a quiet room with quality speakers or headphones is recommended. The controlled pacing and detailed sound effects benefit from clear audio reproduction. Watching on a large screen, whether a television or home projector, allows the Italian landscapes and lighting contrasts to feel immersive. For first-time viewers who have not seen the earlier entries, it is possible to watch The Equalizer 3 as a standalone film. The narrative does not require detailed knowledge of previous events. However, for a fuller emotional understanding of Robert McCall's journey, watching the first two films beforehand can deepen appreciation. Seeing the progression of his character across the trilogy makes the final chapter feel more complete. Families should note that the film carries an R rating due to strong violence and language. It is intended for mature audiences. Parents or guardians may wish to preview content before allowing younger viewers to watch. The serious tone and realistic action sequences are designed for adult viewers. Subtitles and language options are widely available across digital and physical formats. This accessibility supports international audiences and viewers who prefer captions for clarity. High-definition transfers preserve the warm color palette and lighting contrasts that define the film's visual style. Viewers interested in rewatching key scenes may find digital purchase options especially convenient. The ability to pause, revisit specific moments, or analyze performance details can enhance appreciation for the film's subtle storytelling choices. For those who prefer group viewing, the film works well in a home theater setting with friends or family who enjoy mature action dramas. Its focused runtime makes it suitable for an evening viewing without requiring an extended time commitment. Overall, The Equalizer 3 is widely accessible through digital rental, purchase platforms, physical media, and streaming subscriptions depending on location. Choosing the right format depends on personal preference for ownership, convenience, and viewing quality. Whether experienced in a home theater or through a streaming service, the film's controlled pacing, strong performance, and atmospheric setting remain impactful. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more gripping movie explanations like this.